welcome to this episode of the MonkCast. My name is Kate Holterhoff, Senior Analyst at RedMonk, and with me today I have Rachel-Lee Nabors. They're here to speak with me about their role as a web futurist and a bit about their talk. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining me on the MonkCast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate. So how have you been enjoying DevOps Days Atlanta so far?
Well, this is my first one, so I feel like I'm learning a lot. But yeah, a lot of the superstars of DevOps are here right now. And yeah, I have been, I guess, not surprised how much AI has come into every conversation. So it's been a good introduction to the culture, I guess. And I've loved the venue. It's a beautiful building.
I know. It's beautiful to be here in historical Georgia. I am overwhelmed with the Southern elegance that surrounds us.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of framing this. I was speaking to someone about what style this room is. So we're recording this in the library, and it's at the Academy of Medicine, where apparently there's some very famous chandeliers here, but it's a Greek revival style. So there's lots of nice detailing on the walls and old heavy furniture like the one we decided to set up in front of.
You mean it's not Georgian?
It could be Georgian. I wouldn't know the difference, but yeah, embarrassingly enough. So talk to me about your talk. What is it that you're going to be sharing with us?
Actually, my talk here is called AI Cram Session, and I put it together because when I would come to conferences, everyone was talking about AI, but I kind of got the impression that people weren't really sure what they were talking about. Like, what's a RAG system? What's a vector database? What is the difference between an LLM and GPT? And is GPT a trademark that only refers to ChatGPT? A lot of times people would say AI, and what they really meant was a chat interface for an LLM running a GPT architecture. And that is a very tiny subset of AI. So in my talk, I drag people all the way from perceptrons, the very first computer that could learn, all the way through what deep learning is and how RAG actually works. So it's a good crash course, and I'm hoping that it will help us all make better decisions. It's interesting to me that we have, like, being an engineer does not mean you are literate in artificial intelligence terminology, which is a whole other field of engineering. It would be like asking your plumber to know anything about electricity. That's a whole nother job class. But suddenly, all the plumbers need to worry about electricity. So I made the whole talk just trying to up-level us all a little bit in our vocabulary and understanding of this field, which is going to impact every piece of our lives.
That's fantastic. It really sounds necessary to me based on the conversations that I have at a lot of these conferences as well. And frankly, I think we're all scrambling to try to catch up with what the latest and greatest in AI is. For instance, Angie Jones gave a talk yesterday about MCP, which was very good. Yeah. And I feel like hers was a sort of crash course, although she framed it around the idea of a mashup, which I did appreciate.
I loved Angie's talk, but generally I love whenever Angie has something to share. But I think she did an amazing job of explaining what MCPs are. I just wrap them up by saying MCPs are just APIs with little wrappers on them so that LLMs know what to do with them.
That's good. Succinct. I keep seeing the USB-C analogy for MCPs. You don't like that one?
No, I think that one's really good for the layman.
Okay.
I feel like for people who have actually built backend services who are like, why do I need to build an MCP server? It's like, oh, it's a standard for LLMs. It's for them. They don't quite know what to do with your API endpoints. They get confused. They need a little human touch. That's what the MCP server's for.
I like that. And I like how you characterize the LLMs in a very anthropomorphic way, because I think we're all compelled to do that. It's like very hard to get away from, and frankly is embedded in the nomenclature. So that's useful.
They're literally language models. They're supposed to understand us. But I think we do mistake like the model of the language for intelligence. I always remember how when I was a kid, people would say parrots aren't really intelligent. They just repeat words. And I think, of course, we all know parrots are intelligent. But in the same way that a parrot might use English language to roughly communicate with us, but not knowing what it's saying, the LLM has no real knowledge of what it's saying. It has no internal, like at least a parrot has self-direction and goals, etc. LLMs do not possess that. That's a whole other side of artificial intelligence study. LLM's just a voice box.
Wow. Do you have any tools that you particularly enjoy using right now that help you to better understand the field?
So, tools that I like to use to understand the field. Honestly, a couple of things. I always say you should be using an agent right now. No matter who you are, what you're doing, you should have an agent. Um, I know that OpenAI is touting ChatGPT as a personal agent, as is Anthropic with Claude. But if I'm honest, I don't quite feel like they are. There's now currently a conversation about what's agentic and what's an agent. Agents are supposed to be little autonomous, agents that go out and do work, and you don't have to interfere with them. Whereas I feel like Claude or ChatGPT is an assistant. One of the personal agents I really like that's come out is Goose, and it's actually from the company that Angie Jones works for. And I find it has a really nice user experience. It's really easy to add little MCP tools, and there are MCP tool directories out there. So you can be like, I want a tool that will let my agent search the web. And you can go find like the DuckDuckGo MCP server, or maybe you want to like collect all your WhatsApp conversations. There's a WhatsApp MCP server. So it's sort of like adding little extensions to your personal assistant so it can do more things. I think this is a really good place for most people to get started. That goes beyond just, asking GPT for responses. And this way you can figure out a little bit more about what the capabilities are for the autonomy aspect of AI that we're exploring right now.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I haven't tried Goose, but it seems like it is a good developer experience for trying to toy around with a lot of these new tools.
I found that a lot of the things that I have just roughly put together, even using like Zapier to make calls to different LLMs, like I dump all of these, I use a AI-driven parser called AgentQL to go to different websites and just daily get search results from those pages, dump them into a spreadsheet, and then I have a call in Zapier that takes the spreadsheet, dumps it into Claude, and Claude goes through and picks out the things that are relevant to the agentic web. And then Zapier sends me an email with what Claude responds with. And in this way, I've got my own personal newsletter every morning, and I can keep on top of trends.
This is so smart. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'm learning. And I think it just like comes down to workflows too, right? The way that we used to do things is just, it can be optimized, it can be improved. Okay. Well, you've given me a lot to chew on. I also want to talk about the conference theme, which is really focused on roasting John Willis. So that's been interesting. I haven't never been to a roast-based conference before. Do you want to speak to that at all? What has been your experience of the roasting aspect?
It's hard for me because prior to speaking at All Things OpenAI in Durham, I did not know John Willis. I did not know who he was.
Gotcha.
And so I'm woefully ill prepared to roast him.
Oh, yeah.
I think it goes to show just how vast the industry is, that one side can have completely different set of heroes than the other.
Yeah.
Although I did hear he wrote this book about AI I should probably read.
He's written so many books. I mean, that is like, the man is a writing machine. It's incredible. So yes, it sounds like there's more to put on your reading list. One more thing.
I know. I find that reading is very difficult. That's another thing, though, that LMs are good for. People use them for generation. I don't think they're so good at generating, but they're really good at taking a lot of information and making it into less information, condensing. The
summarizing aspect is what really appeals to me. I have a bad habit of not liking to write conclusions. It's I said what I said, and I just want to move on. And so I get very frustrated. And there's it is the one thing it can do every time. I just drop in some text, it summarizes it, and I go about my day. And that was always a bottleneck for me. Like, I would put off finishing a project because I didn't want to write a conclusion.
I hear that. It's always awkward, it's like saying goodbye at the end of the night. It's sort of like, I was here and now I'm going.
Yeah.
But people, especially American readers, really appreciate a summary.
They absolutely do. Yeah. Little tangential, but I just found a review of my first book that I didn't know was out there, and just found it by chance because I was Googling something else. And it was from a scholar that I really like. And at the end of an academic review, the last paragraph is the one you worry about as an author, because that's where they say, well, here's what didn't go so well. And in it, he said, this really could have used a conclusion, an epilogue. And I said, well, shit.
Oh my gosh. So which book was that?
It's on illustration studies. So 19th century illustrations. Yeah.
Wow, you have an incredible winding road into tech as well. Have you published any tech books that we should know about?
No, I have not written any tech books. I'm thinking about it, but I almost feel like the book process, especially the one I'm familiar with in academia, is not well fitted to tech because it's so slow. And especially with AI, I mean, we're talking, when did MCP come out? Like, it's only been out since the winter time? Are you kidding me? Why would anybody try to publish a book? Except for John Willis, apparently. He's the man.
I've actually been considering writing a book about AI that expands, just to kind of introduce it to the everyman.
Yeah.
Because I feel a lot of company heads are coming to their engineering department being like, explore AI, go forth and just go do things with it. And the word on the street, at least, I just spoke at Data Council. I've been to a couple of conferences, and I've talked with these teams. I've also worked with clients in the Bay that make products that engineers would use to make workflows and streamline things. And for many people who have been given this mandate, it turns out that they use AI to sort of rapidly prototype things that they could do programmatically without AI. Mm-hmm. If they had a team to build the API, mm-hmm. and they had the resources to build the workflow and the CI system, etc.
Right.
But they just got the mandate to do it with different tools.
Yeah.
My suspicion is like when those mandates dry up, or when leadership is like, all right, show me what you got.
Yeah.
A lot of these will be shifted over to more programmatic approaches that are cheaper to run.
Yeah.
The real question is, what are the things that people are building that can only be done with AI or agents?
Interesting. Yeah. These are unanswered questions.
We're going to find out real soon.
We're going to find out. Okay. All right. These are unanswered questions in my mind. These are answerable questions, soon to be answered. Okay. Well, I think we are about out of time. So what is a good way for folks to keep up with your thoughts on the future of AI?
Well, one of the easiest ways is to check out my website at dressedforspace.com. There's a link to my agentic web newsletter there, which you can sign up for. You can also get on the waiting list for a little something I'm building. But if you'd just like to connect with me on the socials, you can find me at Nearest Nabors. That's NABORS.com. And pretty much every one of my different profiles is there. I talk quite a bit in them, so I hope you enjoy hearing my crazy thoughts about what's going to happen to the web as we continue to explore it with our new agentic tooling.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Hello and welcome to this MonkCast on the road. I am here with Nathen Harvey, DORA lead, to talk to me at DevOps Days Atlanta 2025. Excited to have a number of amazing guests, Nathen being one of them. So welcome to the MonkCast.
Thanks so much, Kate. I'm excited to be here.
All right, so what's your experience been like so far?
This DevOps Days has been really great. The talks, of course, have been really fun, but I love the open spaces the best. That's where we get the participants of the conference all get to propose topics, and we have just open conversations about the things that matter most to the people that are here right now.
Yeah, this is my first DevOps Days, so I'm learning so much about the process, but yes, Chris Corriere said that I absolutely cannot miss the open spaces, and I was able to even suggest one when you talked a little bit about open source licensing.
That's right.
So yeah, I'm a big fan too. I'm a convert. I feel like this should be more universal.
I think it does take doing to get that conversion happening. When Chris described them to you, you probably felt like the same way I felt the first time I went to a conference with open spaces. This will never work. This will never work. And it sounds like something I don't want to do, but they turn out to be really amazing.
I've been deeply impressed, and I like the idea of the interactive part too, because I think by the afternoon of most conferences, you're lagging a little bit. I mean, I'm like sipping coffee, trying to keep up the energy, but it makes it easy because you're the one that like gets to be up there talking about what interests you.
Absolutely. And this community has always been about learning and doing that in a community way, like learning together.
Yeah.
And so I also love just the little things about open spaces. The chairs are set up in a circle. It's not a presentation, it's a conversation.
Absolutely.
And that really matters.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I know there's such an attention to detail here. And I mean, I can't say enough nice things about this building, too.
Oh my gosh,
I mean,
the building is beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, this is great. And you're sort of an expert on DevOps days at this point. You've been to many.
I've been to many. Yes,
Okay.
I've been to
Can
quite
you
a few.
enumerate a few of the ones you've attended?
Well, I'll say that I regularly go to DevOps Days Amsterdam.
Okay.
I helped found and start both DevOps Days DC and DevOps Days Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a pretty regular at both of those. DevOps Days DC, I think, is having its 10th event this year in 2025. That's later in September. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I brought the experts on the show to help educate me
There you go.
about what this is all about. Okay. That's phenomenal. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you're talking about here.
Yeah. So I lead up the DORA research program at Google Cloud. And DORA, is, as you may know, is a research that's into how do teams get better at delivering and operating software. And so my talk, I'm going to lead folks through a little bit of an exercise where we can help them evaluate how's their software delivery performance going right now. But understanding how you are doing about something today is less important than what are you going to do tomorrow.
Right.
And so I'm going to try to give them and some space and some time to think about what might you improve when you go back to the office after this conference is over. And then, of course, DORA as a research program has been looking pretty deeply into artificial intelligence lately because, as you know, AI is on everyone's mind. And so we've really looked at how is AI impacting the developer workflow, how's it impacting software delivery performance, and so forth. And so my talk includes some of our findings there.
Phenomenal. Can you share any of those?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we recently released a brand new report that's from DORA, the impact of generative AI in software development. And what we see is that AI is actually, first, it's being prioritized by organizations everywhere. It's also starting to be relied on by many practitioners. And to me, this is a really interesting thing. You've got sort of this top-down mandate, thou shalt use AI, and this grassroots movement, hey, we love using AI. And it's this sort of like meeting in the middle, or driving from the top and the bottom, that I think is more evidence that AI is real and it's here to stay. And so it is important that we all start adopting more and more of it.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think there's going to be any ripping it from anyone's hands at this point. I mean, it's here.
It's funny, in an open space yesterday, one of the engineers that was here was talking about how they've been using AI for a long time. And on their team, they decided that they were going to try and experiment for the next 2 sprints or iterations or whatever, some amount of time. No AI is to be used. And they wanted to just really understand how does that impact both their productivity, but also how did the developers on those teams feel about having this tool taken away from them?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, how did they feel?
I think they're ready to get the AI back. I think they're ready. They're ready.
No, I can understand that. What it has really helped me with is summarizing activities. Like I really dislike doing abstracts and things where I've got a bunch of text already written and then I need to go back and try to condense it. To me, that's grunt work. That's my bottleneck. I don't enjoy that.
It's really interesting that you talk first about bottlenecks and like where is your constraint, because that's really what the DORA framework is all about, helping teams identify their constraints so they can make improvements there.
Yeah.
But also I love that you talk about summarizing information with AI, because one of the findings that we had from the report was that as you increase your AI adoption, your documentation quality tends to improve.
Yeah.
And that's quality, not quantity. And we have 4 years of research into how documentation quality impacts teams and their software delivery performance and a bunch of other things. And so not surprisingly, documentation quality is really, really important, but also not surprisingly, not a lot of engineers really like wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to go and write some documentation.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this really interesting thing about how AI is impacting that. It is certainly the case that AI can help you with sort of that blank page syndrome, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start. AI can help you start writing that documentation, can help you keep your code documented and so forth. But as you mentioned, AI is also really good at summarizing information.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's this really interesting question that we have as researchers. If we're improving the quality, is AI helping us improve the quality by actually improving the quality of the documentation? Or is it improving the utility that I'm able to get out of the existing documentation by summarizing it and condensing it and so forth, right? And so is the underlying documentation quality actually improving, or is our ability to get value from that the thing that's improving as we're using AI? And our data can't tell us, but I believe the answer is yes. It's both of these things that are happening sort of at the same time that is really driving up the quality that you're getting and recognizing from documentation.
Yeah. I'm interested in how AI is helping folks in the operations sector as well, in IT, because I think when we talk, a lot of us think about like AI code assistance.
Yes.
And that's a writing component. But how is the DORA report? What does it tell us about operations?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So first, we are seeing, obviously documentation quality improving and a bunch of other things that are developer-centric improving. But when we look at software delivery performance, the story changes a little bit. Software delivery performance is actually falling off a bit as you're using more AI. And that it impacts specifically the quality of changes. So that definitely hits operations folks. As we're using more AI, maybe shipping more AI-generated code, maybe the quality of that code isn't up to snuff and it's causing incidents or outages in production. That becomes a real problem. Maybe creating more work for our operations teams and incident response and so forth.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So there's lots more to learn in the report, of course, than we have time to cover here as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd be really impressed if you had memorized the entire thing.
Right. Yes.
What was the exact percentage, Nathen? Help me out here. Yeah. Okay. So, PSA for everyone to check out the actual report if you want the details. For sure. Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, at this particular DevOps Days, we are roasting John Willis.
Yes.
So what has been your experience around the John love?
The John love. Yeah. I think it's always fascinating to me as we bring together a community. Half of the people that are here in the room today it's their first time at a DevOps Days.
Right.
And we're roasting someone that for many of us has been part of our DevOps journey from the very beginning, John Willis. And for some people in the room, they have no idea who John Willis is. And so I think it's always an awkward thing when we celebrate those that were early in the movement and try to welcome newcomers into the movement at the same time, because there's this disconnect. And in my roasting of John, I tried to introduce folks to, why do we know and love John so much? And it really is because he's been around really since the beginning of this DevOps movement, and he's impacted so many different careers, my own career and the career trajectory of so many people in this community. I think the work that he does is underlying a bunch of things, and you may not even recognize that he's had impact on your career. I like to say that, his work, and this is kind of a nod to my my roast of him, his work is both important and mysterious. And I won't say more, so you can watch the recording and get a little bit more detail into the roast of him. A
little bit of a mystery.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, so more PSAs,
Yes.
Follow-ups. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's homework with this podcast.
There's always homework. There's always homework.
How funny. Okay. Well, yeah, that certainly seems to be the case here, where if enthusiasm and a sense of belonging is important for making sure that the DevOps community thrives, then what is the best way to do that? How are we going to walk that razor's edge? And I don't know. I feel like it's been done in a way that I am a relative newcomer to the space, that I felt welcomed, and I feel like I'm in on the jokes. I don't feel excluded. So I would say that it's been done with a clot. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. And the other thing that's beautiful about this conference, right? We're roasting John, and he's here, and he's a very personable person, and anyone here can go up and talk to him and hear more of his stories, but also just share their own story with John. He is he's always learning and loves to hear everyone's stories and experience as well.
I love that so much. Okay. All right. Yes, I have spent so much time with him. I didn't anticipate him to be so approachable, owing to the grandness of his presence in this entire movement.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's funny. He's responded to some of my posts on LinkedIn. And so I feel like, but his avatar is very abstract. So I wasn't entirely sure what he would look like.
Yes.
Not to mention the fact that all the publicity material for DevOps Days has replaced him with Deming. So that has also led to a bit of a confusion. So
of course.
So maybe that's part of the in joke, because you have to actually know what John looks like to find him and talk to him. But once you figure it out, it's all good.
Very true. Very true.
All right. So the roast is being done well. It's not mean spirited. I like this.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would want to tell us about the DORA report?
Yeah, I think DORA, as we mentioned, publishes a report. But the thing that's more important to me than the research and the report itself is the teams that are putting it into action. And it really takes a community to do that. And so the thing that I'm most proud about around DORA is that we've built a DORA community, and it is thousands of practitioners and leaders and researchers worldwide coming together regularly to learn and learn more about the research and how folks are putting it into practice. So we're really learning together, and you can get there at dora.community.
Fantastic. All right. And for folks who'd like to follow more of your musings on DORA and other DevOps days that you're involved with, what's your best social channels?
For sure. I'm on both LinkedIn and Blue Sky, and in both places you can find me with my name. It's Nathen Harvey, but I will warn you, my father misspelled my first name, so it's Nathen Harvey. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
Welcome to this RedMonk conversation. With me, I have Pratik Parikh, who is joining me at DevOps Days Atlanta 2025, and I'm excited to talk to him about DevOps. So, Pratik, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So, Pratik is presenting at the conference. So, talk to me about your talk. What are you presenting?
So, I'll be presenting about internal development platform, what it is about, what it is all about, how to implement one in your organization, and how to actually get the maximum benefits out of it. So,
okay. And can you share some of that wisdom with us here? Give us a little teaser.
Yeah. So basically, IDP or internal development platform is all about developers. It is developer focused, and it should be created in such a way that all your DevOps tools or DevOps processes are all abstracted away behind a nice API and a UI or a UI. And the developers, instead of the DevOps people answering to all the developer requests, things like, hey, can you deploy my branch? Can you run a test and test my code? Or can you update production with my code? So things like these, although they are important, they are it's very like a low ROI work. And all those things should be done by the IDP, and all you have to do is maintain the IDP. As a DevOps team or a DevOps person, you should maintain the IDP, and that's what platform engineering is all about. So.
Fantastic. Okay. And I feel like there is a lot of controversy on the P of IDPs. Are you more of a fan of calling it a portal or a platform?
I mean, it doesn't matter what you call it. Call it a service, call it an API, call it a UI.
Okay.
Can be scripts as well, right?
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
All right. Fair enough. And what would you say the relationship between these IDPs and platform engineering is? Is it like a core to the functioning of these particular teams, or is it something that maybe vendors are just telling us that we need to have, but you could maybe use APIs instead?
So you have the IDP, right? And platform engineering, I would say, at least for me, it is all about the IDP. It's all relates to IDP. So you have to maintain the IDP, for example, right? And that's the whole crux of platform engineering.
And so what does your job look like? What do you do for a living?
So I'm a DevOps engineer at Symbian, and day to day, I'm mostly dealing with Kubernetes, with the cloud, multiple clouds, and creating applications, IDPs, as I mentioned before, and a little bit of coding, a little bit of development, and collaborating with other developers on how to get their deployments, working, and automating the tests and automating other things as well.
Right.
So like creating something like a release thing where they click a button and the software is released. So things like that.
Yeah. And can you talk to me about what your tooling looks like? So are you using like Backstage as an IDP? Are you using something that did you roll your own? Did you build it yourselves?
Yeah, so believe it or not, I haven't used Backstage, and whatever IDP like that I have, it's all built on my own.
Oh, great.
And initially, it started off with like a small script, but gradually, as the requirements increased and the workload increased and the developers increased, gradually I built it in such a way that it's like, okay, go to this website or an application, and you have like different buttons there for doing different things, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What advice would you give for folks who are interested in building their own IDP?
I would say instead of focusing on building the IDP, start with small scripts, maybe slowly make it into like a collection of scripts, maybe a CLI tool, maybe a REST API, and then later on expand as the need. As the need arises into a nice API, and then like a fully fledged application where you have like links to documentations and ready-made templates and preset configurations, things like that for developers to use.
Wow. Okay. Very good advice. All right. So one of the subjects that I often grapple with is the relationship between Kubernetes and platform engineering. So what is the relationship of platform engineering, SRE work, and DevOps in general, and what's happening with containerization?
So I think Kubernetes has been like a revolution where anything you want to build on, and it's like Kubernetes is like the de facto standard now for containers especially. And even if you don't want to run containers, my first thought always is, right, okay, let me do it on Kubernetes. That's like my first thought. Whether it's like a big application, sometimes even like a small application where now you can run like Kubernetes on even like Raspberry Pis, right?
Yeah.
So, that has been a revolution, and it's kind of like the center to, at least for DevOps, if not like platform engineering. But I love Kubernetes.
You love Kubernetes. Okay. Do you hope to attend a KubeCon at some point?
Yeah, I actually attended KubeCon India. That happened for the first time. It was also my first KubeCon.
Love that.
And I'm planning to attend others as well.
Oh, wonderful. You know what's fun is that we're actually having a KubeCon here in Atlanta in the fall. So Pratik, tell me about your experience here at DevOps Days. Is this your first one?
Yes, this is my first one.
Amazing. And where are you coming in from?
I'm coming from Mumbai, India.
Mumbai. Okay. This is my first DevOps Days as well. I am local to Atlanta, so it's a little more convenient for me than coming from Mumbai. But I have been very impressed. What's your perception of this type of conference? It's a little different than typical tech conferences.
Right. So one of the best things that I think about DevOps Days is the open spaces where instead of just one person speaking and others listening, or maybe a little bit of interaction, you get all the people get to speak, get to learn from each other, get to collaborate. And the best thing about it, it's a small focused group. So there's a lot more attention and a lot more collaboration than typical like talks.
Yeah, for sure. I have also been enjoying the open spaces. I like that they are a little more collaborative. I enjoy the fact that we're able to dictate what the topics are going to be.
Right.
And I think it's also a nice way of talking back to a subject and not just being a passive listener.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And let's also talk about the theme of this particular DevOps Days, which is roasting John Willis. Were you familiar with John Willis before the conference?
Not so much.
Have you felt like they've done it in a way that helps folks who were unfamiliar with John to feel included in the jokes?
Yeah, a little bit now. I would say I know more about John than I knew before. So.
Okay. It's tough to get that sort of humor right. But I would say some of the roasts have been done very well in a way that even if it was a total stranger to me, I still would think it was pretty funny. I mean, the jokes I feel like they're pretty universal, and some of the speakers here are phenomenal. So that also I think helps with the delivery. I'm glad that there's folks here who can bring that type of energy and playfulness. Yeah, and talk to me about Atlanta. Are you doing any touristy things while you're in town?
Yeah, so I visited the aquarium and it was amazing.
I love that.
Especially the dolphin shows and the sea lion shows, and they were phenomenal.
Love that. I'm so glad you got a chance to go to the aquarium. I tell anyone who comes to Atlanta that if you're going to do one thing while you're here, it's got to be the aquarium because it is world class. I've never seen such a large aquarium. It blows my mind. And in the middle of Georgia, of all places. I mean, it's wild. But yes, it is absolutely the best aquarium I've ever visited in my life.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you're getting a chance to get out a little bit. But this is a lovely building. I mean, this is very unusual for a conference. I'm used to maybe, hotels or, big conference center. The World Congress Center, for instance, is our local large sort of corporate seeming box where a lot of the trade shows happen. But this is, I think it helps with the sort of intimacy of open spaces and
Right.
helping folks to feel a little bit more included because, it almost feels like a living room. A very nice living room, not my living room, but somebody's, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, Pratik. Can you give us any socials so that folks can keep up with your musings on, I guess, IDPs, DevOps, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. So that's probably the only social media I use like a lot.
Great.
I'm also on Twitter, but not so much.
Yeah, not so much. I'm with you. Okay. I very much appreciate you coming on the MonkCast. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the MonkCast. I'm excited to have Kimasia Ayers with me. She is Director of Multimedia Innovation, and I'm so excited to be speaking with you here about user-centered design. So talk to me about what you're doing at DevOps Days Atlanta.
Gotcha. So I'm a speaker. I presented yesterday with an Ignite talk, and when I tell you it was my first Ignite talk, and I was like, okay, 15 seconds per slide, we got this. Inclusivity. But so my session was called Designing Beyond the Template, How to Build Digital Ecosystems That Reflect the Complexity of Society. And so I emphasize how sociology influences technology and how technology reinforces us sociologically. And I provide a couple frameworks for ways to approach, not just the actual design, UI, UX, but how to also look into your actual ecosystem when it comes to your brand, when it comes to outreach, community outreach, infrastructure, decision-making, who's making the decisions. And I highlight how, inclusivity is not just, having a couple people who are like, oh, there are different ethnicities or someone's in a wheelchair. We're cool.
Yeah.
It's actually taking them into the decision-making process and getting user feedback. And some of the frameworks that I am introducing into the tech field are actually my own frameworks that I created. So I created something called the axis of assimilation. And so I don't like to think of it as, like a seesaw of like, oh, I'm here and then now I'm here. I like to think of it as like a hex color grid where all the colors at the top are going to the shade white. And then all the colors at the bottom are going to the shade black, but it's looped together to where like there's like that weird gray scale in the middle. And essentially it's comprised of pseudo assimilation and meta assimilation, where pseudo assimilation, you're assimilating for the sake of survival, of community camouflage. For example, say you go into a space where you're like the odd one out, but for a fact that like the odds aren't in your favor. So I like to use the example of, being like me, I'm Black and queer, going into some professional spaces. I noticed that like, hey, I necessarily don't shorten my name to Kim, but I noticed that a lot of professionals will just call me Kim like right off the back, or I have to act differently, or I start to articulate my words. Like even now doing the podcast, like I'm making sure that I'm being articulated and enunciating my words when, meta assimilation is when it's actually part of your identity, but depending on the environment that you're in, you're kind of like being flucid. And so I use the word flucid. It's actually a word that I made. Shout out to my English majors. It's a word that I made, which is comprised of fluid and lucid, where I call it flucidity. And essentially you're in the state of flucidity where it is you, but it's not the full you. Because, like, for example, one identity that you share, that's not your entire identity. And so this framework highlights the cultural hybridity and how you aren't just one single thing. You're an entire puzzle piece comprised of different pieces that shape your identity, and it's influenced by your thoughts. It's influenced by your environment and the people around you and your traumas, and how all those things come together into its own form of like qualitative research. Because quantitative research is cool, going by numbers is cool, but I tell every brand that I work with, that single number, whether it's $1 or it's just a user signing in, that's someone who experienced today differently. They woke up differently. They grew up differently. They have different beliefs, different ideas of what a perfect society looks like. They have different ideas about themselves, and they see themselves differently how you would see them. And so it all kind of goes back into this other theory called the spiderweb theory that I coined, where essentially, so my hyperfixation as a child was spiders.
Oh,
Like
okay.
it was spiders. And so I
Interesting.
remember being in elementary school and picking out the same 3 spider books from kindergarten to 5th grade.
Wow.
Just checking out the same 3 books. And when they got a 4th one, I got it and I lost it. So I had to pay for it. But essentially just like a spider web, every spider is different. You know, a funnel web spider's web is going to be different from an orb weaver versus a trapdoor spider or a fishing spider or anything like that. And so with all these different webs, they serve different purposes. And just like spider webs, I'm sure everybody's walked into a spider web before. You didn't see it. It's just like, And so it highlights how everything is intertwined like a spider web. So your love life is influencing your health. Your work is influencing your physical activity. Like every aspect and component of your life is interwoven in together. And I notice a lot of times when we feel like dread or we feel heavy, you know, spiders, once they get their bug, they will literally take it off the web and discard it and like make sure the web's clean, reinforce it. And so I use the analogy of like, you know, when you're feeling down, what is still on your web? What debris is on your web? Whenever you feel like your life has gone crazy, did someone walk into your web? Did a bird just randomly fly into the web? Or, you know? And so with everything being intertwined, I feel like the spiderweb theory also highlights how everything is so invisible until you're in that one perfect moment. And then you see like, wow, everything is intertwined together. Mm-hmm. I remember a core memory that like kind of jolted like the theory. I was walking on a bridge with a couple of my friends, and the bridge, like from right here all the way to the edge of like the bookshelf closest to the wall, it was a giant spider web just across water. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, how did that spider even go over there to come back and then just go back and forth and make a web? And I remember one of my friends grabbed the web and was like, watch this. And then he pulled the web up so high and just let go. And it was like, boing, 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 boing. And I was like, wow, it's so strong. And then I'm examining it and I'm like, oh, wow, like only the horizontal lines are sticky. The vertical lines are here for structure. Mm-hmm. And then I really started to see how everything's so interwoven and just like how, you know, every web has a different purpose. Every web has a different pattern, but it's still a web. It still has the same fundamentals of, you know, assisting with life. It might be assisting with life differently. For example, you know, a trapdoor spider actually making a door out of its web versus a crab spider just here in a flower or something, just like, hey, I'm here. I'm making a web because I'm just...
Interesting. Oh, man. You could have been a biologist.
Yeah, I thought about being an entomologist when I was younger, but I was like, how would that transfer into the job?
I can't give you any advice on that one. I have no idea.
That's so real.
Yeah, but that's super interesting.
Thank you.
I was so excited that you wanted to come on the podcast because you and I both did lightning talks, one after the other. And you were so well prepared. I was really impressed by your presentation. And you're right, the format is just really exacting. The fact that you have to get up there and you can't really see the slides while you're presenting them. You have to talk very quickly. It's very hard to prepare for. And I feel like I had some good takeaways for the format. So since both you and I experienced the difficulties of this type of presentation, as you're processing this, can you give any advice for folks who might be thinking about doing a lightning talk in the future?
So what I would say is find a method that works best for you. Okay. I know some people who start off and they're like, oh yeah, I have my 5 minutes down. Me personally, I took an hour presentation and had to make it like 15 seconds per slide. Yeah. And so what I did, I essentially just did a brain dump of this is what I'm passionate about, this is what I want to talk about, like da-da-da-da. I already had a couple of slides like essentially fixed. Yeah. Because I used the slide when I spoke in St. Louis. So I looked at it and I was like, okay, what are things that I can take out? Yeah. And so I took some things out and I timed it. I'm like, oh wow, you're at 30 minutes. Okay, take some things out, take some things out, take some things out. And then the slides that I kept, how can I make the wording as small as possible or as like to the point where if I lose track, I can just low-key just read the slide. Right. But make it where it's like almost like caveman speak, if that makes sense, where it's like, hey, instead of me having this huge definition of like what implicit bias is, I'm like, you don't know it. Anyways, this is an example. Explicit bias. You know it.
Yeah.
This is an example. And then also, just having fun. Like, I know that sounds so freaking cliche of like, just have fun. It's a speech. Like, have fun. But I feel like if you're talking about something you're passionate about, and this is something I know you can also relate to, because I could just see your face light up when you present. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I feel like if you really care about what you're talking about, and then having like maybe bullet points or just like looking at a slide, because I was peeking at them slides.
Okay.
Yeah,
were.
I was
I
peeking. I was looking at them slides. I said, oh, okay, 50 seconds. Da, 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 da. So this is axis of assimilation. This is communicative theory.
Yeah.
But you know, it'll naturally come out. And then also having photos or GIFs.
Yeah.
Like that. I wish my GIFs were moving, because it makes it like level up like 50 times. Because I'm like, imagine this is moving.
Oh my God. That's right. Yeah, none of our GIFs worked for the presenter mode.
Yeah.
That was too bad. Yeah, that's all really good advice. My takeaway is, I don't know. I get up there and I'm telling jokes, and I've certainly lost track of time. And I wish that I didn't have any slides that actually related to my topic, because towards the end I did have like some things that sort of related to parts of the talk that I never got to. And so I would do that very differently. But I also began with a longer presentation and cut it down, and I should have cut it down more. I needed to keep cutting. I was over optimistic about how much I could jam into that, but because I think you're right. At the end of the day, it's about having fun with those talks, which I think is why having the whole theme of the conference really has been about a very good-natured roast of John Willis, and having fun underscoring that, and it's something that's difficult to do, especially in a kind way. And John is here. He knew this was coming. He's very, very good natured, and it demonstrates his importance to the DevOps community. But at the same time, I think it shows that this is, maybe a group of people that don't take themselves too seriously. And so when we get up there and are over prepared, it just doesn't translate as well, maybe, especially for the Ignite talk. So I don't know. Those are the lessons that I have. But I also, if I could go back and tweak some things, I would be doing that. I'm impressed that you were able to look at your slides, though, because I hit the ground running. It was like, okay, here we go. And then just all that, it was my end slide. I was like, well, I guess I'm done. Wrapping it up,
Yeah, that's so right.
Clap hands. I'm done.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Well, thank you.
I was like glued in. I'm like, okay, I'm locked in right now. I'm like, this is really good.
Combining a little content with a little fun. Yeah. I aspire to be a speaker like Katie Anderson, where she doesn't have to look at her notes.
She did a phenomenal job.
I was so impressed. Yeah, no, so some of the speakers here, I mean, they're like straight from a TED Talk. And so I'd like to think on the spectrum of like being able to present at a conference and, getting up on stage and not just sheer panic. I'm somewhere in the middle, but yeah, I mean, she's very aspirational for me. I don't know, but I'm sure she practices. I know it's very, I think very few people can get up on stage and just command it and have all the bullet points top of mind. I mean, it takes really hard work and a lot of commitment. So, but I mean, I would say that you're on your way to doing it. I was very impressed. So talk to me about your history with conferences. How many do you do? You mentioned St. Louis. So do you present at conferences all the time?
So I actually just started. So I spoke in St. Louis 2 weeks ago. I've kind of been on like a conference tour. So I knew I wanted to motivational speak or public speak or do something since I was in middle school. And so I found Sessionize, and I was like, wow, like I can apply to a bunch of them.
Yes.
Okay, bet. And so essentially I just made a crap ton of sessions, and any opportunity that interests me, whether it was accommodated or not, I was like, this is going to be my main vehicle that's going to build rapport for my consulting company. Because I noticed, when you're in consulting and you're an independent contractor, it's hard to find clients if you're not already tapped in.
Yeah.
And the network that I'm tapped into, I don't see them. I'm not going to say aligning, because that's definitely not the word. I like to utilize like the network that I have for some of my other like passionate projects, and not just my consulting, because I also substitute teach. And so I'll substitute teach for an entire week just to have money to spend. So whenever I'm in like Atlanta, I'm like, okay, I don't have to look at my card. Just swipe. It's okay. Keep track of your finances though. But, and so I went to St. Louis and spoke on the same presentation that I did for the Ignite talk. And then I went to Las Vegas for the Experiential Marketing Summit. It's the only conference for experiential marketing. And I'm a part of an organization called Experiential in Color. And they sponsored me to go. And I didn't speak, but the notes that I got from watching the speakers and like really like I started paying attention to other things. Like, for example, like with Kate Anderson, her lack of filler words, there was not any or or anything. I was just like, wow, like
It's transcendent.
She's doing it. Like, I feel like we're in an individual one-on-one conversation right now. And so it's like, I would go look at speakers, just see like what information I can get, network with them. And then I came to DevOps and now I'm here. And then on, I think Sunday, I'm going to Copenhagen in Denmark.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
And then essentially I have a conference every single month except for in June, because in June my podcast, Kim's Corner, Humanizing the Creative Experience, it's also like I do media coverage. And so we're going to go cover a festival in North Carolina called the Do-Rag Festival. But it's like I'm speaking at like an Agile conference, Agile 2025 in Colorado, and then the Gold Writers Conference. And then I'm just trying to conference as much as possible, just to like really build that rapport, not just with my company, but like also with myself. Because when it comes to my research, I noticed that since I don't have a PhD, some people don't see me as like super credible, even though I was like writing like 40-page master theses in undergrad and just like doing crazy assignments where they would be like, hey, the final is the outline. And then I'd be like 13 pages in and I'm like, just the outline? Oh, okay. Well, I'm done. Like, and so essentially like using this to build credibility as, you know, I just finished undergrad. And so going into like my master's, and then I'm thinking about getting a PhD. I think I wanted more so for the credibility, but then also Dr. Ayers sounds pretty cool. Like,
Sure does.
I really like that.
Yeah.
And so just saying like wherever like the universe and God takes me. And so right now I'm just like, build rapport, do whatever you can. There's no reason why you should not be doing something.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, Kimasia. Will you give us some ways that we can follow you in your world journey? Do you have any particular social channels that you prefer? How can folks get in touch with you?
Gotcha. So I have a couple. So my LinkedIn, if you are in a professional mood, I would say LinkedIn and stay on my LinkedIn.
Okay.
So my LinkedIn is Kimasia Ayers. That's Kim and Asia put together, like Kim, and then the continent Asia put together. Ayers, Ayers. I tell my students it's pronounced like the air but plural.
Okay.
And then all of my social media, whether it's YouTube or Instagram, this is usually where you would see me kind of take off my, I don't want to say professional mask, because I feel like I make it a mission for me to not hyper assimilate into like professional spaces.
Okay.
Where you'll see a blend of like fun, creativity, sociology, me just goofing off, or creative projects, or hey, I just wrote this article. You'll see probably things about like my podcast, or just avenues of me just life dump. And then it's just a bunch of random stuff like my time in Las Vegas, or even here, like I'll take pictures of like whatever catches my eye. So yesterday at the after party at the nacho bar, I took a picture. It was like nacho bar. And so you'll see that if you follow me, just like random dudettes of my mind.
All right. Nacho bar. That's good. Okay. Love it. That's great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the MonkCast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this. Thank you.